Okay. Okay. So, good evening, everybody. I'm Max Rudman, and I welcome you to Let's Cook, a program of Young Israel Shomrai Emunah. There are many different ways to get ready for Rosh Hashanah. One way is through foods that evoke great memories of childhood and tradition. To help us prepare such foods, Young Israel Social Committee asked Chef Yehuda Malka to demonstrate a few recipes that we can all prepare and add delight to our meals. This year, when our holidays will look and feel different because of COVID, we hope that adding these foods to your holiday celebration will add meaning and delicious food to help increase your joy and add new memories. Yehuda Malka is a Silver Spring native, chef and co-founder of Schmaltz Brothers Catering and Restaurants. He has trained with some of the DC area's most celebrated chefs, honing his craft in order to elevate the standards of kosher food and hospitality for the greater Washington Jewish community. For more information about the company, please visit schmaltzbrothers.com. His company's food can be sampled in a food truck that travels throughout several communities in this area. David Fisher, also a native of this area, is a videographer for this program. To allow us to focus on Chef Malka, you will all be muted. As much as possible, we want to make this an interactive experience. You'll be able to send questions and comments via the chat feature, which I will then relay to Yehuda. The list of ingredients and recipes will also be posted in the chat. I turn this now over to Chef Malka. Okay, are we on? David, can you start us off, or Yehuda Malka, can you start?
Ready to go?
Yeah. All yours.
All right.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to tonight's cooking class. We are going to be sharing with you some things that I like to make at home. I plan on making for this Rosh Hashanah, and I would love to share with you a couple of different recipes, techniques, tips, things that you can use very easily in your own home, fit into your everybody's very hectic schedule this time of year, getting back to school, back to work, and with the holidays coming up, make sure to have enough time to prepare for the holiday, not just for Gashmias and Ruchnias, but also to spend the time with your families and to just enjoy the Yom Tov. Rosh Hashanah, we know, is supposed to be Chatzi Lashem, Chatzi Lachem, so there is a definite plus to having something nice to share at the Yom Tov meal, and that's what we're going to work with today. So just briefly as an overview, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank Shomrai Emunah and specifically Max Rudman for putting this event together. Very excited to be able to host a cooking class, even though it's over Zoom, over COVID. I think there's still a lot that we can do, learn, talk about, and for putting this together, really working around, what can be everybody's hectic schedule to arrange this. It took a lot of time, a lot of effort. So thank you, Max Rudman. Thank you, Shomrai Emunah, for having me here tonight. Thank you, David Fisher. He's behind the scenes doing all the amazing videography and making sure that everything sounds and looks as nice as it's going to taste. Secondly, Poskim Michvot Achsanya. They're not here right now, but as you can see, we're in this beautiful kitchen at the home of Judge Matt and Lisa Solomson. They were very kind and generous to open up their home to me and to us to allow us to have this program tonight. And as you can see, it's a beautifully newly renovated kitchen. I'm actually going to be talking about one or two unique features here, things that if down the road maybe you're interested in upgrading your kitchen, there are some little cool things here to talk about as well. Before we begin, I know Mr. Rudman did mention Schmaltz Brothers. See it right there on the hat. Schmaltz Brothers is a company that I co-founded along with my partner, Chapel Gage. We've been very fortunate and blessed over the last year and a little bit over COVID to open up. We began with our food truck, which has been really a boon for us and for the community around. During COVID, we've been able to travel, use the truck to travel around to all these different neighborhoods in the greater DC area and share what we hope is really amazing food and hospitality experience that happens to be kosher, both with our community, which we know everybody here that we know really cares deeply about kosher, cares deeply about the Torah and mitzvos, but also beyond our community to our Jewish brothers and sisters who maybe are more traditional or have not even heard or had the opportunity to experience kosher food. And we hope to do it at a high enough level that they can feel, everyone can feel, wow, this is an incredible experience, and I'm not missing anything by following the Torah and the mitzvos, by supporting our kosher stores, our kosher institutions, and becoming a greater part of, hopefully, a much larger, more vibrant Jewish community. As Mr. Rudman mentioned, I did, if you don't know me already, or if you don't know the Malka family, I grew up, in Silver Spring. Until the age of 5, we lived in White Oak, then we moved to Kent Mill. I've been here almost my entire life. This is very near and dear to my heart. I love seeing the growth that our community has witnessed and experienced over the last, over that lifetime that I've been here and been fortunate to be a part. So thank you all for having me tonight. And let's go ahead and let's get started. Tonight, what we're going to be working on are 3 dishes. Number 1, we're going to do a roast chicken, which I hope to make appropriate for the holiday, for Rosh Hashanah. We're going to be working on some roast carrots with a little bit of a special twist, and a fennel and apple salad, a little salad to have along with it. The way I like to eat, even if you've been to my food truck before, you've probably seen it's very, kind of food truck appropriate food. Things that working on the truck every day, I actually have a hard time eating on a day-to-day basis. It's indulgent food, it's delicious food, but when I'm at home, when I'm with my family, I like to keep things a bit more simple, a bit more protein and vegetable heavy, as opposed to things that may be, again, more of an indulgence, something that's a little bit more fattening, deep fried, etc. And that's how I eat for Rosh Hashanah. That's how we eat for Shabbos and for the holidays. So tonight, the 3 items, the chicken, the carrots, the salad, we're going to work on. We're going to talk about each one individually, and hopefully we're going to learn a few new things along the way. Now, I know it was very specific. We wanted to keep things a bit more simple. I can tend to get a little bit more complex in my cooking and my ingredients, but ultimately what I believe good cooking comes down to is a few things. Number 1, a little bit of creativity in how you're using your ingredients, how you're using your techniques. Number 2, ingredients that are high quality, that you can respect and you don't have to manipulate too much. I don't typically use a lot of store-bought ready-made things besides for highly processed foods, besides for a few that we'll share with you tonight. And then care and love. If you're putting your heart and soul into cooking, for me, one of the reasons why this occupation really appeals to me is that I'm able to take a craft, take something that I enjoy doing, put a little bit of my joy and my heart into it, and share it with friends and family. And in doing so, we build a nice camaraderie together. The key with any of these dishes we're going to be working on, as simple as they are, is really just that, respecting your ingredients, knowing what basic techniques you have to have. Some things you can fudge a little bit along the way, taste the food along the way, and keep it simple. Keep it simple. With me in particular, I build up my pantry at home. I have a bunch of different random interesting ingredients that I can kind of pull in and out. The thing about cooking that I love, that I've always loved, and which is different maybe than, let's say, baking, is that with cooking, it's all kind of an improv process. You have to know some basic things. You have to know, okay, these are the temperature ranges you're going to want to cook a chicken at. This is the temperature for oil when you're going to be, deep frying something. This is how to saute. But at the end of the day, all you need to know are a few basic techniques. And with that, you can improvise as much as you want with what you have to create something really beautiful and delicious. And that's what we're going to do here tonight. So let's jump in. Right now, to get started, we're going to go with the chicken, we're going to do the carrots, and then we're going to finish with our salad. And I'm going to get these things started the same way I would do it at home to maximize time and efficiency and also flavor. And I'll explain that as we go. So before we begin, I did get started with our glaze for our chicken. If we can get a shot over here if we can or if we can't. But what we have, very basic, something that we actually use at Schmaltz Brothers, is a hot honey. And as a Sephardi Hungarian hybrid, spicy food is something that I love. Tilt the pan a little bit. Let's see if we can get it there. Perfect. Now, hot honey, spicy honey, it's something that's it's become a little bit more popular over the last few years. Very simple to make, lots of flavor, and you can use it. It's very versatile. All you do is, you see over there, we took some dried chilies. I used some dried chipotle chilies, whole chilies, put them in with a bit of honey. And today, actually, again, because I had in my pantry, as I was packing everything up, I have this silan, which is date syrup, and I thought, hey, it's appropriate for Rosh Hashanah. I like to try to use on Rosh Hashanah anything that I can from the typical simanim. So we have the silan, which is the date syrup, the honey, a little bit of water, just because you're going to be cooking it down, and the dried chilies. You let that cook on low, get a nice little simmer, cook that water out there, and you'll infuse the flavor from the chilies, not all the heat, but a lot of the smoky, dry chili flavor into that honey mixture. Now, we did send out some recipes for all of these items before the event. Use those as a reference, but again, the key to remember with cooking is you want to taste as you go and don't be afraid to improvise. So if you don't like how something tastes at that particular moment, think, do I want to make it a little bit more sweet, a little bit more sour? Does it need more salt, umami? And with cooking, you can always add a little bit of this, that, balance it out as you go. So it's always important to taste things as you go. Now, moving on next, we're going to get our chicken ready to roast. Now, our chicken we're going to be doing in a couple of different steps. Now, I forgot to mention earlier, we are taking any questions. So if you do have a question, something that's very pressing, and you want to go ahead and interject, let me know. David Fisher is going to, he's going to repeat the questions for me, and I'm happy to address anything you would like to know cooking, about these recipes, or otherwise in general. So I have 3 chickens over here, which I picked up from Shalom's. Now, anytime you buy a chicken, there's going to be some variability in the final product that you get, and we'll see which one is best for each of our purposes here. So this beautiful bird, about 3.5 pounds. The other 2 guys over here, what they had in store were a little bit smaller, in the 2 3/4 pound and change range. And I have the 3 chickens because besides for the chicken we're going to be making right now, we're also going to be talking a little bit about how to butcher a chicken, typical butchering process, and also maybe some special things if we have time. So one thing I want to point out, you can pick up a chicken like this and you can see sometimes the skin is a little bit torn. That's just, it's a part of the manufacturing process, it's a part of the processing process, and that's just going to happen. It's just the luck of the draw. Sometimes you can see it when you buy the chicken, sometimes you really only find out afterwards. This guy right over here is nice, the skin's intact. I'm going to save this one a little bit later for when we do the whole deboning, and we're going to use one of the smaller ones over here for the roast chicken. Yes, I believe we have a question. Yes, you could use a skinless chicken, though I would not recommend it. For roasting a whole bird, which I like to do, typically my family, we don't actually end up eating the skin, but you're going to want to keep the skin on during the roasting process in order to benefit from really the self-basting nature of what's going to happen when you cook the chicken in its skin. Because all of the subcutaneous fat that's in between basically the skin and the chicken itself, it's going to add a lot of flavor. It's going to keep it moist and keep the chicken from evaporating out. Now, if you do want to get rid of the skin entirely, I would probably recommend take the skin off prior to roasting. And as you saw in the recipe, we really only talked about basting the chicken maybe the last 20, 30 minutes of the cooking process. If you take the skin off entirely, you're going to want to baste it more frequently to keep the outer layer of the chicken from drying out altogether. Okay, so we have our chicken right here. Now, if you're going to whole roast the chicken, again, I mentioned briefly, we're going to want to maximize flavor as much as possible. So we touched on that just now with leaving the skin on during the roasting process. But also let's look at some other things you can do from an ordinary whole roast chicken in order to keep it or to get as much flavor out of it as you can. So first things first, we're going to be trussing the chicken. Now trussing a chicken, besides for the presentation where the finished product, you get a nice bird that is all tight together, not flying all over the place. It cooks very evenly. But what you also are able to do is make better use of the cavity while you're cooking the bird. So when I'm at home and I'm roasting a chicken, I will just literally take whatever ingredients go well with chicken and put them inside the cavity before I truss it. So I've got some lemon. And you just have to think, hey, is this going to be good with the finished product? So what else are the other ingredients over here? We've got honey, we've got chilies, we've got chicken. Honey and lemon, good together. Lemon and chicken, great together. We'll add a couple of sliced leeks over here just to fill up this space. Oh, actually only have room for one, and then I'll just toss in a little half of a shallot. All of those things are classic, really just things you might have lying around in your kitchen anyways. You might want to get rid of. Let's say you have like kind of a mushy lemon sitting at the bottom of your fruit drawer. This is a great way to get rid of it because you're just going to put it in there. You're not juicing it. You're not serving it. It doesn't have to be pretty. All it's going to do is it's going to add the flavor to everything else. So we've got all of our stuff in there, and now on to actually trussing the bird. Now the key to trussing the chicken is first and foremost, you just want to be able to keep that cavity closed because when the bird is in the oven, any of the hot air is going to travel wherever it can. And if you leave all that open, you're going to cook too quickly from the inside of the chicken. And what might happen is the breasts are going to dry out before the legs and thighs have had a chance to cook. Because of the bone, the extra bones in the legs and thigh, those and the bone conducting heat away from the meat, the legs and thigh are what's going to cook longer than the breast meat. And actually, as dark meat, it just needs a little bit more time to tenderize. So you want to try to make it in such a way that you can really cook everything to the optimum temperature, the optimum level of doneness. Now, we're going to take a little bit of butcher's twine over here. There are a lot of different ways to truss a chicken. Some high-end restaurants, they have their own particular way of doing it so that the finished bird is going to look extra pretty. Today, all we're going to concern ourselves with is just closing up that cavity right there. So we're going to take our butcher's twine. Right down the middle, you can see both of the other ends are relatively symmetrical. And right behind, sometimes you'll have this extra bit of the chicken neck bone. I'm just going to loop that in over there. I'm going to take the twine, run it along the sides of the breast and back over the cavity and cross it over the keel bone over here, that edge of the breast, so that you can see, I don't know if this is a good shot, you can see it kind of plumps it up and isolates the breast over here. Now, once we have this tied over like that, I'm just going to go ahead, wrap both ends over the joint this way, this way. Wrap it over the joint between the leg and the thigh, cross one more time, and pull. And you can see already, kind of gives the bird a nice little shape there, and then you just do, I'll get from the back side here so you can see, just like that. Just going to do a little over, under knot. I'm actually going to do, I believe this is called a surgeon's knot. I was never really a Boy Scout, but I think if you do a second over, under, it holds it a bit better, especially when you're tying it, and then just double knot it again. One is fine. And grab your knife, cut off the ends, and we're mostly good to go. Now, as I said, it's not a perfect bird. What's going to happen is, because there was this cut over here during processing, this skin is not completely covering the breast. This little area over here and here would typically dry out a little bit. It's fine. It'll still be delicious. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead, remove one of my gloves, so I have a free non-chickeny hand. A little bit of salt. Salt the exterior. And you can be, unless you're on a very much no salt diet, you can be a little bit heavy-handed with this because it's just going to really diffuse in through the skin. Your chicken is not going to be overly salty. A lot of this is going to render out during the cooking process. And again, if you're just going to remove the skin anyways, you're just going to get that flavor in right now. And the way you do that is really just through the outside of the skin. Okay, we got that chicken ready to go. Got a little pepper also. We got it here. Oh, a little bit on a coarse setting. Now, I spent quite a few years working in some regular non-kosher restaurants in the area. I had the opportunity to work with a very well-regarded chef in DC, a fellow named Todd Gray. He owns a restaurant called Equinox, which is about a block away from the White House. It's a very popular place among like the DC, political crowd and everyone there. And I remember very clearly, like there was one time where someone asked him, they had an interviewer come in, and he might have been doing, I think it was some paper, and the guy said, question everybody asks, which is, what tips should you tell, what's something that you should have in your kitchen at all times to elevate your cooking? And simplest thing, he said, just good salt and pepper. Good salt and pepper, easiest thing to elevate your food a little bit to the next level. Seasoning your food, this chicken like this is fine, but like as you're cooking anything, if you're making a stew, if you're sauteing a bunch of vegetables, you want to be seasoning as you go to really develop deep flavors in the food. Okay, that is our cue to move on to our oven. Now, I did mention that we were going to talk about some of the unique features of this kitchen. This is one in particular. It's a pleasure for me to be working here with this steam oven. You got me over here? Okay. So this is Miele. I think that's how you pronounce the brand. But more importantly, it's what's called a combi oven or a combination oven. Very automated, can be very automated. This one actually also has a Shabbos mode, but you'll see, boom, we got a big shot of steam right over here. Now, let me just go ahead and get this on the right time. And we'll talk about it for a second. Okay. I'm going to set the timer here. Oop. Apologies. There we go. Operating modes. Okay, so we're going to put this in steam cooking mode for the first 30 minutes. Now, I know I talked about doing this in a conventional oven. I'm going to get this set up. We'll talk about the difference between a conventional oven and a steam oven in just a second. Touch screen. Here we go. Let's do this again. Steam cooking. Set the temperature. Set the time. And we are good to go. Okay, so difference between a conventional oven and a combi oven. Combi ovens have been used in restaurants. They become increasingly popular in restaurants, everything from very fast, quick service, high volume places to the very high-end restaurants. And it's because they use 2 or 3 cooking methods. They use dry heat and they use wet heat, and sometimes also infrared. What's the difference between dry heat and wet heat? Just think of the difference between literally roasting and steaming something. So your typical oven at home, this is a regular, conventional convection oven with a broiler. What it uses is only dry heat. You have a heating element and you have sometimes a fan. Wet heat using steam. The difference between cooking with steam and cooking with dry heat is that water carries about 25 times the energy density of air. So think about the difference between this oven right now is on 400 degrees. I can literally stick my hand in the oven, not going to do anything to me, because the air in the oven just doesn't have a lot of that. The heat energy, the intense heat energy that's coming from that heating element. It dissipates very quickly. With steam, or if you've heard of sous vide cooking, which is where you seal something in a bag, you put it in a water bath, not only do you get a much higher blast of heat, you also achieve a couple of things. Number one, steam or a sealed cooking environment like a sous vide bath, you're not losing any moisture of the food, because while it's in a steam oven or while it's in a sealed bath, that moisture in the food cannot evaporate. Think of how disgusting it is to be in Silver Spring or Washington, D.C. in the summer on a super humid day. The reason why it's so uncomfortable when it's extra humid and hot outside is not just because there's an extra level of heat. It's because your body quite literally cannot cool itself down with the process of sweating. You can't sweat off any of that heat because the air is already so moist, the moisture just can't transfer off of your body. Same thing with an oven, same thing with a sous vide bag. If you're cooking something in there, in that sealed or in that humid environment, the food is not going to be losing any of the moisture that it would normally in a convection oven or on the stovetop. So today, what we're doing over here right now is we're doing a two-tiered cooking process in our steam oven. We're going to be cooking the chicken at 200 degrees Fahrenheit at 100% steam for the first 25, 30 minutes. And that's going to keep the chicken real nice, moist, and juicy. And then after that, we're going to evacuate all of the steam, get it as dry as possible in there, and crank up the heat to a much higher temperature, to a roasting temperature, which will finish the chicken and then caramelize the skin, brown the skin. Because again, while it's in wet heat mode, that skin can't crisp up. When you're crisping up the skin under the broiler, in a convection oven, what you're really doing is you're drying it out. And as you dry it out and as the moisture in that skin evaporates, then once it's fully evaporated, that's when that heat that's coming on there can then brown the sugars, the fats, anything that's in the chicken that makes it that golden brown and delicious. Now, so if you're going to be doing this, like I said, today we're kind of cheating a little bit in the Solomson's kitchen using this combi oven, but I do the same thing almost every Shabbos in my own like regular 15, 20-year-old KitchenAid, plain, not even convection oven. All you've got to do to maintain some tricks to maintain the best quality in the bird, thank you, is you want to make sure that the legs are cooking faster than the breast is cooking. So what we mentioned in the recipes is preheat your pan, which I have a cast iron pan in over here. I would have used that for the chicken. I'm actually going to be using that for our carrots in just a little bit. And then you want to cook the chicken at a high temperature first. So reverse of what we're doing right now, but at a high temperature first. Crisp up the skin. Get that blast of heat on the outside, and then after that 30-minute period, lower the heat. Let some of that residual high heat that's on the outside, that's in the oven, slowly diffuse into the chicken, so you're really not overcooking anything on the inside. Both are perfectly wonderful ways to cook a bird. Like I said, we're cheating a little bit now tonight, but at home, use your regular convection or conventional oven to cook your chicken properly. So we got this going. It's going to be in there for about 25 minutes. We're going to move on now, unless anyone has any specific questions. Nothing right now. Okay, we're going to move on right now to the carrots. Now, roast carrots, roast vegetables, something that's very easy to do. There's only a couple of little tweaks to this, which I've added something I like to do at home. I've done also at work to just boost the flavors a little bit and round out kind of the presentation we're making today. So number one, it's Rosh Hashanah, a little bit special. We're going to use some rainbow carrots. I just like how they present. Carrots, incidentally, you know, the typical orange carrots that you get, these have been selectively bred by, you know, the supermarket producers, or the supermarket producers wanted uniformity in things like carrots, tomatoes, corn, bananas. All of those things in nature were typically very variable in appearance and in taste. But because of mass market food, we're used to seeing, you know, just the orange carrots. Today we're going to be using these beautiful, colorful ones. And I have some whole coffee beans over here. Now, why the whole coffee beans? This is a little trick that was done first by a chef named Rene Redzepi, who runs what's been called the best restaurant in the world for many, many years. It's a place in Denmark called Noma. They focus a lot on just really out there techniques, ingredients. Fascinating if you want to look that up. But I remember he was, I think, just kind of screwing around in the kitchen and toying with the idea of things that add flavor to, if you add two ingredients together, you take some of the flavors in one, some of the flavors in the other. It doesn't quite change. Let's put it like this. You're not going to get pronounced coffee flavors in the carrots, but you know, one of the things he figured out was that if you roast carrots on a bed of coffee beans, you'll get a transfer of flavors that's complementary but not overwhelming. It's very unique, very interesting. He used it in some different applications. Today we're just going to be using it as a way to boost the flavor profile of the carrots and kind of balance off the salad and the chicken. So very simple. We're going to take our pan, our roasting pan. Going to add coffee beans to the bottom of the pan. Oop, that pan is hot and this towel is not. If your towel is a little bit wet and you grab, this relates back to the oven thing, and you grab something very hot like a 400-degree cast iron pan, eventually any of that moisture in the towel is going to convert to steam. Your hands are going to burn a lot quicker than if you just picked it up with a dry towel. Carrots right on top of the coffee beans. Ooh, that's getting hot. And into the oven. We're not going to cook them all of the way through. What we want to do is we want to get them cooked almost most of the way through, but really it's about getting the infusion of the flavor from the coffee beans into the carrots. Now I've done this with coffee beans. You don't want to use grounds because then it can become a real pain, to separate out afterwards. You could use pretty much any whole spice that you like that you think will go with carrots. I've used let's see, cardamom, long pepper, think peppercorns, think of anything that comes off the top of my head. But if you look in your spice rack, you have something interesting that's just been sitting there and you think it might go well, give it a try. It might surprise you. So we've got the carrots going in the oven. I put the carrots in whole. So I want to get, again, I want to get them cooking most of the way through, not all of the way through. After they're done, we're going to check on them in about 10-15 minutes, see how they are. And then I'm going to slice them up. We're going to finish them with a glaze on the stovetop. And again, because we're doing this here in a slightly different format, I have the carrots going separately from the chicken. But if you notice in the recipe, and what I would typically do at home to save space, to save time, to save usage of pan, and to maximize flavors, I would cook my chicken in the cast iron pan, and then use all the juices from the chicken, which we're gonna take later on, but I would use all of that as a base for roasting the carrots or for the glaze with the carrots. So again, you want to make sure you're thinking about not throwing away flavor. What I really like to talk about, not throwing away flavor. So whether it's, you know, the pan drippings from a the pan drippings from a roast chicken, which you can use for any number of other things, to roast vegetables in them, get some of that flavor that's out of there, or whether it's, you know, if you're using lemons for juice and you have the opportunity and the time and you can zest or peel the lemon beforehand, you know, save the lemon peels, make limoncello, use the lemon zest in a salad. Don't throw away flavor if you can get away with it. Okay, now we've got the chicken cooking. Keeping on that, yep, great. We've got the carrots going. I've got my glaze ready. It's already cooked down. I just turned that off and let it sit until it's time to baste the chicken. And now we're going to talk about the salad, which is very, very easy. This is another salad that I like for Rosh Hashanah in particular, obviously because we've got apples and we've got some honey in the dressing. So for this salad, I use apples, green apples. You can use Granny Smith apples. I tend to find Granny Smith might be a little bit too tart, especially for Rosh Hashanah. We try to keep things more on the sweeter side. Obviously, you want some balance in there. I forget what these were called, but I picked them up at H Mart, golden something apples. I don't think they were golden delicious. They were something else, but we're going to give them a try tonight, see how they do. And then we also have fennel bulbs. If you've never had fennel before, it has a taste reminiscent of black licorice, fennel seed. I'm not sure if they actually use fennel seed in things like arak or in black licorice. If that's where the flavor comes from, I'm pretty sure that is. But the vegetable fennel, I particularly love. It's great in salads. It's great on pizza. It's great. If you quarter this, you can make, you know, it's used a lot. Let's just say it's used a lot more in Sephardi cooking, I think, than traditional Ashkenazi cooking. But as I mentioned earlier, I'm a hybrid, so I get the best of both worlds. So to take apart your fennel bulb, it's going to look like this, or it's going to have long stalks shooting off the top. You want to just slice that off, and we're going to use our little garbage bowl over there. I say again, garbage bowl, but any of the things that you cut off from vegetables, whether it's the tops from fennels or whether it's the tops, the green parts from leeks, if you can, and if you have a use for them, save them and make a stock. The fennel fronds, they do have a taste reminiscent, almost, they look like dill. You see that? Looks like dill. Cross between dill and the actual fennel as far as taste. It's great for a garnish. It's great if you're roasting fish, which you might be doing for Rosh Hashanah anyways. If you have a whole fish, cut them out, stuff the fish with some of the fennel fronds, some lemon slices, roast it. It's great to use. So you cut off the top, slice off just the very tough end on the bottom, and then you want to go crosswise this way as opposed to this way for our purposes for how we're going to cut it. So you want to slice it along the longer bias over here as opposed to this cross section. Now in the fennel, I'll take another close look. This is the root over here. Some people like to cut this out. For me, if I'm going to be slicing this up, it holds it together, and I don't mind particularly the taste of the root. It's a little bit more crunchy, but in a salad like this, it actually works. So you could do this one of two ways. Either you could take a sharp knife like we have over here and just make some thin slices starting from the side, like so. Or if you happen to have a mandolin handy, these are great. This is a, I believe it's a Japanese brand, Benriner. You can find them on Amazon. You can find it probably at H Mart. They come with a guard, so you don't potentially shave off your knuckles while you're doing any of this. And there's a little adjuster over here for the blade height. And you just want to get it pretty thin. I'd say probably about 1 millimeter thick, maybe 2 or 3, and just shave that down. So, got some of that. Now, why am I doing this barehanded? Number one, I've had a lot of experience with it. Number two, I'm also kind of an idiot when it comes to these things, so I will do occasionally some things I would not recommend for other people. But as I like to tell people, I've gotten quite used to the occasional cut or burn. This typically is my burning hand. This typically is my cutting hand. You'll see more cut scars on this one, and the occasional burn scars on this one from grabbing hot things. Today I'm using the mandolin, so this one's actually more liable to get a little cut on it, but it's all good. Builds character. All right, so we've got move this over here. We've got our fennel. It's going to go into our salad bowl. Put this in with our scraps. Now, again, maximizing flavor, maximizing texture. What I like to do with this salad in particular, you get the fennel like this. If you're not going to be using the fennel right away, you want to store it in just cold water, just enough water to cover it. Put it in a quart container, something tall, so it doesn't have so much surface area on the top. That'll keep the fennel crisp and from going brown. Because we're going to be making the salad somewhat immediately, what I like to do first is just put a little bit of salt in with the fennel, toss it around. It helps tenderize it because the salt will really draw out the moisture from the vegetable, and it'll really add to the dressing. Salting your food early and often is usually the way to go, unless you're talking about scrambled eggs or some would say hamburgers. Don't salt your hamburger mixture. What you want to do when you're making hamburgers, get your hamburger mix, get it ready, salt the top of it right before you cook it. So I got that going. I'm going to do the apple as well. The apple, I'm going to cut 2 halves and then 2 quarters. I like this half moon shape for this particular salad. Works well with the way we have the fennel cut. And again, you can do this both ways. You can either take your sharp knife and slice it like that. Or you can use your friend, the trusty mandolin, and just cha-cha-cha-cha-cha like that. And there we go. Same idea. Now, I don't know if you can see clearly quite from where that is, but if you notice kind of the fennels, you see this, can you see this fennel down here? A little bit. You might be able to notice or not, but it's already glistening. The salt's already doing its work. It's already drawing out that moisture, so that's why I'm okay just going ahead and adding the apples. Now, apples will oxidize and brown very quickly as well, so you can do two things. You could either store the whole thing in water, again, like you would do with the fennel, or because I'm going to be using some of this in the dressing anyways, you can toss it around with a little bit of acid, either lemon juice or the apple cider vinegar we're going to be using. And what that does is it's an enzyme in fruit, which makes it go brown and oxidize. And as with a lot of different enzymes, they become denatured or inactive if you expose them to either heat or different varying pH levels. And the pH of lemon juice or cider vinegar is enough to accomplish that. So that'll keep it from really turning brown on us as we move on to the next part of our demonstration. Okay. And we'll make the dressing for that in just a second. So I'm going to take, while we have it here, I'm going to go ahead and just slice up these last two bits of apple. Now, one of the things you learn very quickly in a professional restaurant setting or cooking environment is to come in with a game plan and to clean as you go. Whether it's you're cooking just dinner for your family at night, or you have something larger planned like a Yom Tov or a Shabbos meal, it's really always great to know exactly kind of what the steps are from start to finish for the whole meal, how you're going to get it accomplished, what dishes you're going to be using, and really keep yourself organized, neat and tidy as you go along. You know, it's just good to be on top of that. Things can get kind of overwhelming in a kitchen. There are a lot of people running around, a lot of stuff to keep track of. The more you're on top of your environment, the neater, the tighter that you have it, I think the better your finished product will turn out. Okay, now, while we wait for that chicken for another few minutes, and let's actually check in on our carrots real quick. Ooh, you smell that? David smells that, okay. I'm just going ahead, tossing the carrots around a little bit. Cut into it with a knife a little bit. There's a little bit of give. It's not quite the snap of a raw carrot, but it's not quite done yet. I'm actually going to pull that probably right around the time when our chicken is done with the first half of our process. Okay, now in the meantime, we're going to talk about some additional techniques of how to break down a chicken. Take our other two birds over here. For this, all you need is a work surface. Obviously, chicken, with chicken there comes a risk of foodborne illness with raw chicken, so you always want to keep things separate. If you can, use gloves while you're handling it. Throw away the gloves after you're done. Okay. Now we'll start with this guy over here, who's been butchered not so well already. And I'm going to show you just real quick how to turn a chicken into, let's see, quarters, and then we'll do not eighths, but sixths, which a lot of people might typically want to use for soup. So with the chicken, you got the wings over here, got the legs and the thighs and the breast. The way I like to break this down, if I'm going to be doing fried chicken, or if I'm going to if I want individual pieces, like I want the leg and the thigh, I want the breast separate, and I want the wings separate, and then I want the carcass. So we'll start with the thighs. This guy over here, the skin already ripped off the breast, but I'm going to cut it closer down to the joint. Now, as soon as you cut that, it exposes the thigh joint right over here. On the back is what we call the oyster of the chicken, the best part of the chicken, in a lot of people's opinion. And what you're going to want to do is really just grab the chicken like this. Grab it from the thigh bone and let the weight of the bird, really, it's going to sound a little bit gruesome, but break that joint a little bit. Dislocate the joint. That'll do some of the work for you. Key to remembering, breaking down a chicken, you don't have to do a lot of cuts to break down a chicken. All you have to do is you have to cut through the joints where there's some tendons or ligaments joining either the muscle to the bone or the bone to the bone. And if you do that, you can really just kind of peel the whole thing apart, and we'll see that more in particular with this one. So what I'm going to do is a small, sharp paring knife. Just run that. Just use kind of the chicken as a guide. Cut one side there. Move on to the next one. Okay, again, you can kind of pop that joint out. Run the knife behind the oyster, like so. And then you have your breast on this side, which we're going to separate the wing. Now again, with the joint, you don't want to cut through the bone. Number one, it's going to give you a bad finished product. Number two, it's going to damage your knife. So with the wing joints like this, you just want to flex the joint as much as possible. And then you'll see right in there where the tendon is, where the cartilage ends. You just slice that off. You're left with the joint over there. Repeat on the other side. Again, flex it, make a little cut, inspect, you see where it goes. Behind there, pull off the wing. With the breast, here, what we're going to do, because the skin is all mangled anyways, I'm going to go ahead and remove it, as our listener was interested in doing. And again, it's just kind of pull it off, see where it gives a little bit, and then just cut the rest of the way. You really don't want to be doing too many cuts to this. Okay, here is your boneless breast and the carcass in the back of the chicken on the other side. Steam cooking is done. I'll check in on that in a second. Let's just finish this one part. Now with a chicken, with a turkey, any type of poultry, there is the wishbone. You can either cut around the wishbone or you can remove the wishbone initially. To cut around the wishbone, you just want to run your knife up and down along the inside over here, and you can stick your fingers in and pull. They'll come out. This one, a lot of times it's already broken. Somebody already made the wish. I got one half here, got another half here. And that's important because when you pull off the breast from the bone, you're not going to be left with any of that little jagged part. So on the breast here, you have the keel bone in the middle, and there's a little bit of cartilage right underneath there. We're just going to make, excuse me. All right, let's take a pause for a second. We're going to take a look at the chicken. Let the steam clear a little bit. Okay. Yeah, if you can. What's that? 20 minutes. Got it. Okay. Now, if you can you see the chicken? Okay. Now, if you'll notice, a couple of things. Number one, we talked about this area where the skin isn't covering it. So that is already basically cooked all the way through. This chicken is, just by touch, has cooked very quickly. Like I said, we started with a 2.5 kind of pound bird, so it is going to go faster than obviously a 3.5, 4 pound bird. The skin, you'll notice, has a nice sheen to it, but it is not dried out at all. I won't be able to see just yet, but there is quite a bit of liquid on the bottom of this pan, which we're going to use when it comes to finishing off the carrots. And now what we're going to do is just crank this thing up, get rid of the steam, and all we're going for is browning the skin and finishing that. So let's see how we do this over here. Back. Operating mode, convection. And that's not the one that I wanted. There's one, let's see. Not that one. 1 second, we'll figure this right out. Okay, I can't find quite the setting that I wanted to do originally, so what we're just going to do is a convection bake, and we're going to turn the oven to really as high as it's going to go. Intensive, maybe that was it. No. Huh. Browning. Right. Thank you for bearing with me, everybody. Okay, I'm not quite sure. We're going to turn this up to 435. That seems to be as high as it wants to go. And okay. And we're going to let it do its thing and brown. I'm going to give that about, till we're done, should be about 15, 20 minutes or so. Okay. And as we said, we're going to check on these carrots. Now, if you'll notice, the carrots are kind of dry looking. They're not so exciting looking. But as you see, the knife goes through them pretty easily, not super soft just yet. I'm going to transfer this pan onto the stovetop. Just let it cool a second. Then I'm going to take the carrots off, get rid of the coffee beans, and we're going to proceed with glazing the carrots. In the meantime, let's finish up with this chicken. Shut the oven. There we go. Okay, so once again, your breast, keel bone, we remove the wishbone. You're just going to make 2 cuts alongside that keel bone, and just let the knife be a guide. Go ahead. Sure, I can amend the instructions for the steam oven. The instructions that I gave were for a typical dry heat convection oven, as I figured, hey, that's what I have at home. I'm sure that's probably what most people have at home. These have not, the combi ovens have not really become so ubiquitous quite just yet. But if anybody would like, I'm more than happy to send specific instructions for use in a combi oven. Okay, and number 2. Now again, do not throw away flavor. A lot of times, you're left with this, the chicken carcass. Maybe you see these in the supermarket. If you don't have any use for your chicken carcasses right now, put them in a Ziploc freezer bag, toss it in the freezer, wait until the next time you're going to make chicken soup, and pull it out, roast it for a little bit, or you can just use it as is and use these for soup. When I'm making chicken soup at home, I'll either use leftover chicken backs. If I make a whole roast chicken and leave it like that one, and we carve it at the Shabbos table, I will still save that carcass, toss it in the freezer, stockpile them, and when I have enough to really fill a whole entire pot full of soup, I'll go ahead and I'll use those to make soup. Another thing about chicken soup, while we're on the topic real quick, use, a lot of people will take a whole chicken, you'll buy chicken quarters or 6-piece chicken or something like that, toss that in a pot with some vegetables, some aromatics, some water. That's great. That'll make a fine soup. If you really want to up your game, your chicken soup game to the next level, what you're going to look for are flavor and texture. And both of those things you're going to get both with the carcass, but more importantly, if you can buy a pack of chicken wings or a couple of packs of chicken wings, these are phenomenal for soup. Number one, they have a lot of skin to meat ratio, and a lot of the flavor is in the skin. Number two, they have a lot of connective tissue, especially when you have a lot of chicken wings together. That connective tissue, that collagen, breaks down into gelatin as you cook, and when you do, you're going to be left with a more luxuriant kind of mouthfeel from the final chicken soup. Think of when you refrigerate that cold chicken soup. Sometimes you'll do it and it'll still be a liquid when it's refrigerated. I promise you, if you make a pot of chicken soup from 1 or 2 pounds of chicken wings, you put that thing in the refrigerator, it's going to set. It's going to become like a chicken jello, like a pacha, and that's what you want to see. That's really like a really nice, rich chicken soup is when it has both of those things. I love chicken wings. They're cheap normally for a pack like that. Not the drumettes, the actual wings and the carcasses. Great way to maximize flavor and minimize waste. Now, finally, let's move on to, I'm going to skip the next part of the chicken and we'll come back to it if we have time. We're going to move on to finishing our carrots. Take my towel. We have our carrots here. And I'm just going to transfer these. They've already cooled enough kind of that you can handle them, but if it's still a little bit too hot for you, then please use caution. Use tongs are great. I just happen to keep a spatula with me in my chef kit at all times. We'll transfer them there. Take our coffee grounds, or coffee beans, I should say, and just, you can put them in the trash. You can actually make coffee with them. And you'll get a little bit of an interesting, additional taste to that coffee, but hey, it's certainly worth trying. Okay, now, for these carrots, the way I like to slice carrots when we're doing kind of a glazed carrot or a tzimmus, I know a lot of people like to do, you can do the simple way is basically just a round like that. You could do slicing on the bias, more like a roasted carrot kind of situation like that. This is, the way I like to do it is, was taught to me, not personally, but through his works, from a chef named Thomas Keller, has restaurants, the French Laundry, per se in New York, and he calls these obliques. And what you end up getting is really even pieces, and I'll show you what I mean. So let's say you take a carrot, normal carrot like that. I'll start with a larger one. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to place your blade at kind of a 45-degree angle to the carrot, slice, and then you're going to want to rotate the carrot, I guess, what is that, 180 degrees, right? Or even less. And you get kind of these odd geometric shapes. And besides for, just kind of looking a little bit different, what you're able to do with that is keep the size of the cut shapes of the carrot uniform as the thickness of the carrot kind of changes and tapers off from top to bottom. And keeping shapes, keeping things uniform is always important when you're cooking, because that will make sure that everything is cooking kind of at the same time. And these carrots are done really just as I want them. They're a little bit al dente, to borrow a pasta term. So I picked these up from H Mart. I believe Trader Joe's has them. I don't recall seeing them at Shalom's recently, but I'm sure Larry can get them for you. They're fairly common these days. It's fairly common, easy to find these multicolored carrots. Even though it's not quite root vegetable season yet, but carrots are one of those things where they're, always in stock. All right. That. Actually, I'm gonna taste one of these. Yehuda Malka. It's subtle, but you definitely get a little bit of a nuance from the coffee. The other way to do it, if we had a little bit more time, you could really slow roast these carrots about 200 degrees for 45 minutes instead of what we did, which was 400 degrees for 15, 20 minutes. And that'll give it more time to really infuse the flavor. All right. 10 minutes to go, all the time we need. We've got our carrots. I'm gonna transfer them to our hot cast iron pan, whichever type of pan you're using, back on the stovetop. Now, margarine, if this were dairy, we would be using butter. I actually found Shalom's does carry this. Incredible product. I think this is Land O'Lakes makes this. It's a plant butter. It's not margarine. Two different things. There's a plant butter. It's made with avocado oil. We use something similar to it in my kitchen at Schmaltz Brothers. Tastes like butter. It does taste very much like butter, melts like butter, works like butter, made from plants. Okay, take my little spoon over here, and we're gonna just add a couple of pieces at a time. I've got my stove on medium-high, depending on, the power of your stove at home. I'm gonna add 2 pats of this butter over here. Let it melt, do its thing, toss it around, and then to that, I'm gonna add a little bit of honey. And we're gonna finish it with some lemon juice. Okay, now while that's heating up, we're gonna finish our salad. So we have, you'll see, we have our apples, we have our fennel, still looking nice, not brown at all. The vinegar and the lemon juice do their trick. Okay, now if you notice, I'm using my hands a lot. If you have clean hands, if you're washing your hands regularly, if you are making sure not to cross-contaminate things, your hands are the best tools that you can use in the kitchen. Okay, so I've got some apple cider vinegar. I'm gonna do a little splash. Again, please be sure to follow the proportions in the recipe. I've got a little bit of Dijon mustard. I almost forgot before we do that. Okay. So this chicken is not browning quite as well as I would have liked it to, and you know what? That's probably my fault for using a fancy new oven I hadn't used before. This oven is hot. I'm going to transfer it to this one. We're going to finish broiling it, and I'm going to baste it at the same time. So we got a low broil going. I've got my hot honey Ceylon mixture. Hot honey Ceylon mixture. Just, kind of swiping away from all of the chilies. Yeah, boy, that really didn't brown at all. There was a setting on here where it kind of clears out all the steam, and that's why chicken looks the way it does. Still delicious. We're just going to skip a little step over here. We're going to broil it real quick. So as you notice, basting on, and the sugars, the honey, The Ceylon. It's really going to help with the browning and obviously with the flavor. The other thing I'm going to add over here while we do this is our shallots and what else do I have? Leeks. And you know what? This is a good illustration of what I was mentioning earlier about improvisation. Sometimes you just work with, you know, I don't know, you forget something was in the oven. I forgot, you know, or I forgot to put it in the oven or whatever it was. You work with what you have, you could still make it delicious. So in addition to that, I'm going to crack this back open again. Toss some shallots in here. And again, with maximizing flavor, what I like to do, you know, if we're going to be serving the chicken, you want to have some root vegetables, something to go along with it. Let's see if we can get this to cook. So about 5 minutes remaining. Okay. All right. See if we can get some heat on this. There we go. All right, let's do it. So we did our apple cider vinegar. Go ahead. Absolutely. Well, would the glaze work the same way with the carrots? Yes, absolutely, and it's a great way to kind of, where I'm looking for, not uniformity, but you know, give a nod to one of the dishes and the other dishes so that they cohere nicely together. I've got the apple cider vinegar, Dijon mustard, and honey, and this is a very simple salad. It's just balancing out those three flavors. Typically during the rest of the year, I like to also toss in like candied walnuts or some other nut for a bit of a contrast. Rosh Hashanah, we try to avoid having nuts, or some people try to avoid having nuts. It is great on its own, even without it. So you can make the dressing on the side, or you can literally toss them all together like so. What was that? Remind people what was in the salad? So we've got the apple, we've got fennel. We sprinkled a little bit of lemon juice to keep it from browning, apple cider vinegar, honey, and Dijon mustard. And that's it. And you just want to let it marinate maybe 5-10 minutes before serving. We've got our carrots cooking over here. We're getting some browning, which is nice. And a little bit of sheen on the carrots. I'm going to go ahead, add my honey, probably about a tablespoon, maybe more. And you can just swirl it around to let it coat. That's about all you have to do with that. I turned off the heat. The cast iron is staying hot. I'm going to add one more, about half a tablespoon of butter. Plant butter, I should say. And we have some lemon juice. Just going to add maybe also a teaspoon just to season it a bit and also to help emulsify the sauce. Beautiful. Let's check on our chicken real quick. Ooh. Well, we're broiling it, maybe a little bit too close to the broiler, but as you can see, getting some nice color there. I'm going to go ahead and baste it a little bit more. Now, if you do this a smart way, just in a convection oven, don't try to recreate what I was doing over here. The skin will be nice and golden brown. You're not going to have any of these dark spots from the chicken kind of sitting right under the broiler. But that bird is essentially done. I'm just going for color and for crispness right now. Do I have a minute to do a real quick, fully deboning the bird? All right, let's do that real quick. This is a special one, something that I like to do for the holidays. This is a technique I first saw on PBS with Cooking with Jacques Pepin, the famous French chef. And this is how to debone an entire chicken. Okay, got our bird. We're gonna make one cut down the back. So you slice through the skin. Now what you do is, you start at the top with the wings. You're gonna separate the wing joints from the body. We're gonna peel the white meat from the body, and then we're going to separate, in reverse, what we did with the other one, separate the thigh joints from the body, and you'll see when we're done, you're gonna be left with a fully deboned bird, which is great for a lot of different applications. It's fairly easy to learn if you can do it. You know, if you can do this, if you can get a couple of birds and you want to practice, or, you know, whenever you get the chance. So again, you separate the wing bones at the joint over there. I'm gonna use both hands. I'm gonna wash my hand in a second. And you're gonna want to take out the wishbone, same way we did earlier. Boom, look at that, full wishbone. All right, now you just grab those wing joints and you just kind of peel that one side. And then peel that other side. Go down all the way to the end there until you're exposing, same way, the leg and the thigh. Cut around the leg and the thigh on that one. Cut around the leg and the thigh on that one. Boom. There is your chicken carcass. More importantly, there is your chicken without the carcass. So now what you can do is you can leave it like this with the leg and the thigh bone in there, or we can go further and I can pull these bones out also. We're gonna forgo that for today. I smell my chicken finishing off. I'm gonna turn that off. We'll pull it out of the oven in a second. We'll plate everything. All right, let's get this over here. Now, what you would do with this kind of chicken is make, what I like to do is make a roulade. You take your boneless chicken like this, and you can stuff the inside of it with any number of things, herbs, matzo ball mix, and then really just wrap it back up. And tie the ends, and you essentially, not good to be doing this quickly, but what you'll be left with is really just a boneless kind of round over here. You can see it like that, which you can really just slice, boom, 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 like that, and you'll have a nice roulade in the middle. You can poach that in chicken soup, you can roast it, you can fry it, delicious. I'll wash my hands real quick, get the chicken off, and we will plate everything. Thank you everybody for your patience and for coming along tonight. If you guys have any other questions while I'm going to be doing this, please feel free to, now's the time to shout them out. Ooh, all right. All right, this side's this is the good side. This is the side you want to photograph. The other side, maybe not as much. I'm going to take the juice from the chicken over here and add that to my carrots, give it another little depth of flavor, and we will go ahead and plate this. So we can have a look at the finished product real quick. 2 minutes coming up. My knife. Now what you want to do, ideally what you want to do with the chicken, the other thing with roast chicken is You want to let, anytime you're cooking chicken or meat in the oven or roasting or sauteing, anything like that, you want to let it rest afterwards. You want to let the juices reincorporate into the chicken. I'm skipping that step tonight, as you can see. So the same way I broke down the chicken earlier for soup, I'm gonna break it down now for service. But we're just gonna use one leg and thigh and one breast over here. You don't have to go ahead and remove the, like I said, burning hand and cutting hand. Carve that up nicely. And again, this is where you can either keep the skin on or remove it, depending on what you want to do. We've got our chicken, by the way, which smells delicious. And we've got our carrots. Glazed carrots. Now, if you're a fan of tzimmus, you can use these carrots as you would in, you know, your favorite tzimmus recipe. And we have our little shaved apple and fennel salad. Go ahead and really just glaze that chicken a bit more. Some of that glaze. And boom, ready to go. Turn it a little bit that way.
Just a minute, honey.
There we are.
Wow.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. I hope I was able to teach you something, or maybe you saw something that would be of interest and something that you can use for the holiday. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me, Yehuda@schmaltzbros.com. Happy to answer any cooking questions you might have. This is what I do day in, day out. I love it, and I'm happy to help share the knowledge.
Thank you very much, Yehuda. This was really a pleasure. Thank you for putting yourself in a position of teaching us so much.
Okay.
And I'm sorry that we didn't have enough time to encompass a lot more of your time and your knowledge and expertise.
Hope to see you at one of our Schmaltz Brothers institutions soon. And I'll just thank you again, David Fisher. Thank you, Max Rudman, Shomrai Emunah. Have a great night.
Thank you very much. Shana Tovat, everybody. Thank you for getting us started, Yehuda. Appreciate it very much. Be well. And our next program starts in a few minutes with Rabbi Postelnik for a shir on a different way of, an additional way preparing for Rosh Hashanah. Thank you very much.